a competition like MasterChef is very challenging as well. I think people don't realize behind the scenes how difficult it is to do television and to be competing on like a reality show. So we were sequestered. So I was very homesick. All of us were very homesick. We, lived in hotels in Los Angeles. We didn't really have access to be able to call home or email home at all. So many of us were homesick. We didn't know. We were under the stress of not knowing what would be challenging us the next day, who would be going home, because we all eventually became friends, and it was hard for to see some of our fellow contestants and friends get dismissed from the MasterChef. And then on top of that, my vision impairment made things even more challenging. The show did provide me a sighted guide to help me find things in the pantry, to help me locate things on my station. But we had strict rules placed on us so that it wasn't that I had an advantage with someone helping me. So I was never allowed to have her cook for me or touch my food or ask her, does this look right? I would have to ask very questions like, oh, is this piece of steak, is the color red or is it pink, or describe the color. And that's how I would deduce if it's burnt or if it's still raw. So
Hello again, my name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And today we have a very, very special guest for you. And we actually named this episode, hey, there's a journey from MasterChef to restaurant success. And today's guest, and you guys going to meet her right after this, so I had the opportunity, and our audience knows that we do ethical stocking. And we love everything. There was something special she did in 2012, and you guys are going to know and learn a little bit more about that. And as we started diving into and who she is, there was 3 things we said our audience will love. Number one, she had to overcome something really dramatic. The second thing is food is in her life. Food is in her passion. Food is who she is. And the third thing is the person you guys are going to meet today is the same person when you watch a video from 10 plus years ago. And with that, I want to say hello to Chef Christine. How are you doing? Thanks for coming to the Entrepreneur Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Christian. So
we're really excited for this conversation. And my personal admin, he talked about you all week. So he said, Christian, make sure. So now I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And for our audience, make sure if you haven't done so, like today's episode, make sure you guys check out Chef Christine's site. Make sure you got to follow her, and make sure you guys gonna write in the comments what you learned from today's episode. So with that, Chef, talk to us. How did this whole thing start?
I would say that my career in the food world started with MasterChef, but to rewind before that, if any of you know MasterChef, it's a culinary competition on television with Gordon Ramsay as one of the judges, and it's a contest for home cooks, amateur home cooks. So none of us who compete on the show have had formal culinary training. So that is my background. I have never taken a cooking class in my life, but cooking came to me naturally, like many people who are great home cooks. I started cooking when I was in college. So after I'd moved out of the dorms after my first year into an apartment with a small kitchen, I realized I had to learn how to cook because I didn't have the dorm cafeteria to rely on anymore. And growing up, I never learned how to cook from my mom or my grandmother, like many great chefs, but I was not interested at all at cooking as a child. But my mom cooked a lot of great home-cooked Vietnamese food, and I took all of that for granted. So both of my parents were Vietnamese refugees that escaped Vietnam right before the fall of Saigon in 1975. And I was born some years later in Southern California. And after losing my mom when I was 14, I realized that I missed the foods that she used to cook, and she didn't leave any recipes behind. So I didn't really have a way to learn her dishes or her recipes. So I just taught myself. So in college, I bought a cookbook. I had vision then, so I was reading these recipes in print and trying my hand in the kitchen. And after many botched dishes, I finally cooked my first successful dish, which was a Vietnamese ginger braised chicken. And I picked that recipe because it had the shortest list of ingredients, the shortest amount of steps. And, after screwing up so many other dishes, I figured this was the one dish that if I failed at this, then I'm going to give up on cooking forever. So I decided to try this dish. It actually turned out successful. And I remember because I had sight, looking around the table in my apartment and seeing my roommates and my friends actually finishing the food, enjoying it, and they looked happy. So I realized at that moment that there is something very joyful and fulfilling about being able to feed other people or have other people enjoy something that I created. And that was what initially sparked the joy of cooking in me. And so I kept at it. I would read recipes and teach myself about different ingredients and techniques and experiment a lot in the kitchen. And gradually around this time, I started losing my vision. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that affected my optic nerves. So I gradually lost my vision in my 20s, but I have always been taught to be independent, and I'm very determined by nature. So I kept trying to teach myself how to cook over and over again with less and less sight. And fast forward some years later, I was in graduate school for creative writing. And as an artist, I believe that an artist should experience life as much as possible in order to feed their creativity. So I had the opportunity to audition for MasterChef, and I went off to audition, not expecting to get far or to win at all, but really to just experience what it was like to film in Hollywood. And I thought I would come home with a great short story or humor essay to write about in graduate school for creative writing. But of course, I ended up winning season 3 in 2012, and that really put me into the public eye. And I had many opportunities after that to do different things in the restaurant world or food world. And really, that's kind of how I fell into the culinary world, was just by happenstance and a lot of luck and opportunity.
I absolutely love that story. And for me, as I started reading up on you and I heard the story that you lost your mom early, it kind of reminded me I lost my mom as I was 6. And there's 2 dishes I still make where my dad always said, "Oh, your mom used to do this and this into the seasoning." So for me, I call it mom's dishes. There's still 2 dishes I make absolutely the way she does. It's not perfect. It's not politically correct. It doesn't fit any of the culinary norms. But for me, it's one of those things that kind of grounds me and it kind of helps me kind of, having some of my background.
Right. What are the 2 dishes? I'm curious.
So she did a Wiener Schnitzel, which is really, I'm native Austrian, so in Austria we do it all the time. But what she did in the pata, when she did the pata, she never cooked the chicken. She actually uses turkey, and she says you put all of the flavor, everything you want to know, into the egg batter. So we put mustard in it, we put spices, seasonings in it. And for me, it became one of those things. I still do it today because she said if the breading is not really in good because it's pounded out really thin, it's not really good. The second thing is we make dessert. It's called a Salzburger Nockel. It's a souffle, and it normally has raspberries on the bottom. She hated raspberries, so we put all of the different fruits she had left over. She kind of marinated, and she kind of had this thing put in there. And for me, I have no name for it. I said that that's the way my mom used to make it, and so periodically we make it. And she had it, so there was fruit on the bottom, you have the souffle on top, and then she served it with compote. And I was like, why would you do it? I never understood. There's fruit on the bottom, you do souffle and you serve it with more thing. But for me, it became one of those things, and that's the dish. I have a really good friend of mine comes over, and she samples that when we say 2 o'clock in the morning. She calls, "Hey, are you up?" She doesn't know how to pronounce Kaiserschmarrn is that German name. She says, "Can you make some Flunkenflug?" And I'm on my way. And then she comes over, and we just have this at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, but it's 2 dishes which doesn't fit anything in our culinary norm, but it's the 2 dishes I make, and I find myself I make it when I need to be grounded, and I make it when I kind of want to remember her.
Uh-huh.
And for me, it became those are the two dishes when I make them. It's mom. Mom made them for us. And, I have five brothers, five sisters. So my parents had very few hobbies. They obviously had one. But for me, it became one of those things. And I talked to my brother about it. He said, "How do you remember that?" And I said, "Dad taught me." And it's really, really important to me. So for me, I connect with it because you talk a lot about the influence your mom had on you and how she looked at food. So
Mhm.
for me, when I read about that, for me, it's grounding and it kind of, it's for me, it's kind of humbling. At the end of the day, so that's the only thing what counts. So for me, I'm so fascinated that you did the MasterChef. I had the opportunity. Season 8 winner is a really good friend of mine, and I have a lot of fun with him. And for me, I also worked for Gordon Ramsay many, many years ago. I think he has more hair now than he did back then, but that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Listen, I always loved his. He's just cooking his theater. And he said this back, 20, 30 years ago. And for me, it's kind of fun to meet somebody who actually went through that. So talk to us a little bit. So you said, "Hey, I just wanted to be part of this process." What was it for you being part of MasterChef and being fairly early? Because at season 3, he was still hardcore, oh, you need to do this, and that. So talk to us a little bit. What was this like for you? How did that shape you in what you do now? And then we get into the conversation a little bit more. What do you do today? So, but how was it for you? Season 3 is right in the beginning.
It was tough. It was one of the toughest things I feel like I had to go through in my life. I mean, of course, losing my mom and losing my vision were big challenges. But in itself, I think going through a competition like MasterChef is very challenging as well. I think people don't realize behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
how difficult it is to do television and to be competing on like a reality show.
Mm-hmm.
So we were sequestered. So I was very homesick. All of us were very homesick. Um, we, lived in hotels in Los Angeles. We didn't really have uh, access to be able to call home or email home at all. So many of us were homesick. We didn't know. We were under the stress of not knowing what would be and challenging us the next day. Who would be going home because we all eventually became friends, and it was hard for uh, to see some of our fellow contestants and friends get dismissed from the MasterChef.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, being my vision impairment made things even more challenging. The show did provide me a sighted guide to help me find things in the pantry, to help me locate things on my station, but we had strict rules placed on us so that it wasn't that I had an advantage with someone helping me. So I was never allowed to have her cook for me or touch my food or ask her, like, does this look right? I would have to ask
Yeah.
very questions like, oh, is this piece of steak, like, is the color red or is it pink, or describe the color? And that's how I would deduce, like, if it's burnt or if it's still raw. So there were a lot of strict rules placed on us. So there was that additional challenge, I think, of being someone who's visually impaired, trying to cook against sighted cooks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think what ended up being my strength was because I wasn't able to see, I was never aware of what the next person was cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never psych myself out and think, like, look over and be like, oh, so and so is making this very highly technical dish. I need to change up what I'm making to compete. I kind of just went along competing against myself eventually. And as long as I did better that day than I was as a cook the day before, that's what mattered to me. So for me, I took the experience as a growth experience, learning more about cooking, taking the judges' feedback into consideration, but staying true to myself as well and what I love to cook and serve. And so I think that whole experience not only taught me more about cooking and food, it taught me a lot about myself as a person, and learning to build that confidence, because it was just right before this time that I had lost almost all of my vision. And so I was already down in my self-confidence,
Hmm.
very unsure of myself, how I would make it in this world, if I could be successful at things I tried. So I think being on the show taught me to be honest about my vision impairment, because I was also ashamed of it before then. I would often try to
Yeah.
hide it. But now it was like, it felt liberating to just be open about my needs and my shortcomings and my own challenges, but also feeling like, hey, I can do the exact same thing a sighted person can do. I just need certain adaptations, or I need to go about doing it a different way, but I could
Hmm.
achieve the same result. So a lot of the show really taught me about myself and helped me gain confidence in who I am as a woman of color with a vision impairment in the
Hmm.
culinary world, which you don't see often.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. So I'm curious to know, what was a thing or two you learned about yourself being on MasterChef?
I learned to trust my gut and my
Yeah.
intuition more. I think I used to always second guess my decisions, because I always felt not confident in my decisions. And I would think, someone would say, "Oh, this tastes good." And then I'd be like, "Oh, in my head, I may not like it, but I would think, oh, that person must be right. They must know more about food." But I've learned that, food, like so much of art, is very subjective, and
Mhm.
something I make that a lot of people like, there will be someone out there that doesn't like it. And I think that's okay. So
Yeah.
I think it really taught me that to own the dishes that I make and understand that as like a culinary artist, you're not going to please everybody, but as long as you're
Mhm.
making something that you're proud of, that you think you believe is good, that you would want to serve to your own family and friends, then that's what matters.
I absolutely love that. And to our listeners, I want you to go back 2 minutes and listen to what you just said. Because for me, working with as many chefs as I worked with, that is one of the things we don't want to be looked upon that we don't know what we're doing. We don't like if we can't please somebody because this is just who we are. And for me, what you just said is so true. And as a lot of chefs which have that, I call it, that burden on you, on themselves, for the rest of of their lives. And you learned this really early, and learning this at a show. And for me, I just read an article about it where you actually talked about that, and you talked about in the beginning of your career that whole feeling that you wanted to please everybody. I think it's a chef thing. I
Mm.
honestly believe that. And so this was super powerful, and thank you for sharing for that. So you have episode 3 done. You won. How did you celebrate?
Oh, I think I was in shock for 36 hours. I remember being in disbelief, and it didn't hit me until 36 hours later that, oh my gosh, I won this season and it's finally over. I mean, I think I came home and I still wasn't able to tell anybody because the show hadn't started airing yet. So only
Mm,
my closest friends and family knew, the ones that came to the finale and knew the results. But of course, we were all sworn to secrecy, so no one
yeah.
we couldn't really celebrate. But eventually, when the show aired and people started watching, people would always try to get out of me whether I'd won or not. But I kept mum. I was really good at keeping that secret. So when the world finally knew, I mean, it felt like a big celebration, and there was a lot of champagne. There was just a lot of laughter, a lot of celebration, and then, yeah, I mean, I when I got the prize money, I was very responsible. I just paid off my school loans and our car note. So, and then I put it in some investments and savings, and I saved it until many years later when it was finally time. I felt ready to open my first restaurant.
That is so awesome. So by the way, I love that. And you actually talk about this in one of your newsletters, about how difficult it was for you to kind of keep it a secret. And, you had to swear the secrecy, there's not telling anybody. I absolutely love that. So now fast forwarding. So talk to us a little bit, how and why. So you highly successful in what you do. You have that little ding with your site. Okay, why did you decide to open up a restaurant?
It was just another opportunity I felt that came knocking at the door. So I remember coming off of the show, and then people were watching me on MasterChef, and then I'd won, and then everyone was expecting me to open a restaurant right away.
Mhm.
And everyone was like, "When are you opening a restaurant? When are you opening a restaurant?" But I'm very pragmatic, and I'm like, guys, just because I am a great home cook doesn't mean I know how to run a restaurant in a commercial kitchen. Because
Mhm.
all of you professional chefs know out there that it's totally different to be a great cook at home, and it's another thing to be a head chef of a restaurant. There are so many other things that are technical, that are about knowledge of just the restaurant world, that a home cook may not know. So
Mhm.
yes, a home cook may know flavors, may know techniques, but to run a restaurant, you become then a business person. So you have to know how to run a business. You have to think about your cost of goods. You have to think about cross utilizing ingredients. You have to think about health code. You have to think about training other staff. You have to think about how to work the line strategically. There's all sorts of things that go into that. So it wasn't until 7 years after I'd won that I had the opportunity, because somebody came to us and said, "Hey, we're opening up a food hall in Houston, and do you want to have one of the stations inside of it?" And I thought, okay, maybe this is something manageable because it's a small footprint. So the cost of opening a food station inside a food hall was only 400 square feet, was
Mhm.
a much smaller financial investment. And I knew that I didn't know anything about running a restaurant. So I said, why not start small and see what the demand is and just learn the ropes and learn how to operate a restaurant. So
Yeah.
I felt finally 7 years after, in 2019, I was ready to try my hand in the true professional food and beverage industry. And that's when we opened the first iteration of my modern Vietnamese restaurant, The Blind Goat, in a
I
food
love
hall.
that. I love that. So by the way, we need to have a 2.0 of that because I have so many questions for you, and you kind of just touched upon that. I honestly believe there's so many fantastic chefs out there, and then they're going into a restaurant. They're fantastic chefs. They don't know anything about how to run a business. Okay, and that's why I honestly believe so many restaurants fail because it's not being taught. They teach you how to make a great dish, how to make it taste fantastic, and how to do the rest. They don't tell you how to run a business,
Yep.
which is a whole different thing. So I want to know more about that. And then for you, taking on a food court. By the way, I think a food court is harder than a restaurant. Okay, and
It definitely has different challenges. I
thank
agree.
you, because there's things because in a restaurant space and
Hmm.
cash
Yep.
flow kind of lets you kind of a little bit off the hook, which is so different in running a food court. So I absolutely want to know more about you. So, but for me, all of that is super fascinating. So if you would have to look back, what was one or the two things where you felt you were ready to do a restaurant? Number one. So there's kind of twofold this questions. And the second thing is, how did you know you want to do Vietnamese? Because you could do fusion and so many other different ways. So talk to us a little bit. When did you know you were ready to do a restaurant? Because you said people kept asking you need to open up a restaurant. And then how did you choose to make it Vietnamese?
I think to answer your first question, it's really about the opportunity at the point in time that I was at
Mhm.
in my life and the location. So what I mean by opportunity is you I truly believe that you have to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is luck and it's opportunity. Um, I felt like, it took 7 years, like I mentioned. And then finally I had the opportunity to open in a food hall. Before that, we had looked at different spaces that would have been a full scale restaurant. They were like, 2,000 square feet up to 4,000, 5,000 square feet. And thinking about how daunting it was to try to build out a brand new kitchen, put a grease trap in, a big hood, to buy a lot of tables and chairs and equipment and build a bar out. All of that I knew would cost a lot of money, and I didn't feel ready or knowledgeable
Mhm.
enough. So my undergraduate degree, which I didn't talk about, was actually in business.
Yeah.
So I majored in finance. So I do have a business background, and I think that also serves me very well. Um, so I think when the opportunity to open in a food hall came, I felt like I'd had enough time pass where I learned more about the food industry, because by then I'd done a lot of pop-ups.
Yeah.
So I understand, the prep process, and how to serve the masses, which, is important. So I understood how to design a menu or curate a menu where there's quick pickup, and you can cross utilize ingredients and minimize waste. So I was getting a grasp on it. And then to open something inside a food hall, is like, okay, well, at this point in time, I have this money to open this. And worst case scenario, if we have to close down and I lose all of this money, will we still be okay financially?
Yeah, I love that.
And I think we were. So that's when I was like, okay, now I feel ready. Second question, why Vietnamese food? Well, on MasterChef, I was really known for cooking a lot of Vietnamese and Southeast Asian food. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But I wanted to do something modern because I live in Houston, where there's a huge population of Vietnamese people. And a lot of my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, all of those Vietnamese people of that generation have already opened fantastic mom and pop restaurants in Houston. So there's noodle shops, there's banh mi sandwich shops, there's rice bowl plate shops. They do all of this so well and it's very traditional. And so I wanted to put a spin on Vietnamese food and say, like, okay, what can make my brand or my Vietnamese food different? Well, I had this sensibility that was different from them because I'm the second generation Vietnamese American chef that has grown up eating traditional Vietnamese food, but was born and raised in the US. So I also have the sensibility of understanding Texas barbecue or Gulf Coast seafood or Cajun food and Southern fried chicken, and all
I
of these
love that.
other different Vietnamese different cuisines in that can be found in America. So that was really my story, was how do I take all of these wonderful flavors that is the melting pot of Houston and make it into this modern, and infuse it into modern Vietnamese food. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, is tell my story of being a second generation Vietnamese American chef, and to what does that restaurant look like. So our service is different, our restaurant feels different, the music's different, the vibe is different. We have a full bar with craft cocktails that use a lot of Southeast Asian ingredients that pair well with the food. So it's all of these things, I think, put together. It's like, that is my brand, but also this is what, who I am. This is my story in my restaurant.
I absolutely love that. And for me, I need to come and look you up and go to your restaurant, because I think the feedback I got, and that is absolutely amazing. So actually, a friend of mine was there. And so for me, I love all of that. I love the way you look at food. I love the way you look at service, because you talk a lot about this. Hey, how can we make today better than we were yesterday? How can we serve our customers better than anybody else? And for me, that's the key ingredient, what makes a restaurant good or great. And for me, it's absolutely fascinating, the things you did. And for me, I always think about, you talk about this a lot, that you're not a professional chef. And so for me, being a chef is like riding a bicycle. Okay, there's a day where you say, "Oh, you know what? I take my hands off the handlebars, and I get that. Do this, And that's the same thing with cooking, because for me, cooking comes really from who you are. What is the background? How do you look at food? And for me, I can't see you doing anything else than food, because you are a hospitality person. And for me, that's just super, super fascinating. So, before we wrap up, and by the way, I can talk to you forever. And also, by the way, guys, there's somebody named John. Do you want to talk about who John is in your life?
Yeah, so John is now my husband. We've been married it'll be 15 years this year in 2025. He met me in the period when I was losing my vision, and he didn't know, because back then I had enough vision where I could still walk without using a white cane.
Yeah.
I couldn't drive, but I I could still use my computer. I just had to enlarge my font. So I didn't need to read Braille or use a screen reader yet. But I was in the period of my life when I was gradually losing my vision. So he met me at that time and had no idea that I was losing my vision because, maybe I wasn't driving, but he would pick me up and we would go hang out just as friends. And then one day he had saw my computer and I was working on a story for graduate school. And he saw that my font was enlarged to like 35-point font. And he just thought I had accidentally enlarged my font and didn't know how to decrease it back to 12-point font. And he asked me, he was like, "Do you need my help to decrease your font back to normal?" And I said, "Oh, no, like,
Oh, I love
I
that.
like it like this." So then at that point, I was like, okay, I need to tell, him, my new friend, that I am losing my vision. So that's when I started telling him my story, and he was just very fascinated of what my level of vision was. And he asked me a lot of questions, but we became like good friends. And then we eventually were a couple, and then we got engaged. And it was him that encouraged me to go on MasterChef.
Mhm.
And he was there in the auditions, and then he was there at the finale. And then now he is also my business partner in both of our restaurants in Houston. So we work side by side at the restaurant and in our home office. And so he's my partner in life.
I love that. And sorry to put this on you, but I wanted to bring him in to the conversation because I honestly believe there's three things anybody need to be successful in a restaurant. Number one, they need the opportunity, okay, to do it. The
Yeah.
second thing is they need to look at the food the way you do. And it says, hey, this is me. This is who I am. This is how my heritage has shaped me. This is what my career has made for me. And I love the way you look at food. And it's all, yesterday was great, but how do we serve our customers differently today than we did any other day? And the final agreement for me is, and we had this conversation just a few days with somebody else on a podcast, that the person you have as a partner in your life can help you to succeed in the restaurant business. They also can help you to do something else. And for me, it's crucially important that you have somebody who looks at not just food, but overall on outlook on how we serve customers the same way as you do. And
Mhm.
I think you better have John as an amazing human being because there's a perfect fit. You guys are just meant to be. There's no other way. You guys, if not now, you guys would have met somewhere because you guys are meant to be together. And for me, those are the three keys why restaurants succeed and why restaurants fail. Because
Mhm.
I think the partner you have in your life is going to have a huge outcome on how life is going to work out for you. And for me, I
Mhm.
love to hear about this. And you talk a lot about him. And so I got to meet him before the show a little bit. He messed with her technology. So maybe he needs to learn a little bit more how to do tech. But it was great, to meet him. So, Chef, before we get going, I wanted to see if you up for playing something called Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition. But before we do this, if you have one piece of advice, somebody being in the same shoes as you who has, I don't want to call it a physical disability because you made it an advantage, to have this in your life and they don't know where to go. Should I give up? And a lot of people choose to do that or saying, no,
Mhm.
I gotta persevere through it. I will make this work. I will do
Mhm.
this. So if you would meet somebody like that, what would you tell them?
I would say, first thing I would say is it's key to have a great support team, and whether that's in a spouse or a life partner, a business partner, um, like a network of industry
Mhm.
folks that you truly trust, that you can be completely honest with, because I think we all know that being in this industry, it can be very lonely,
Yeah.
um, unless you know other people in the restaurant industry. So, I would say first, it's really key to have a good sounding board in other people, and then second, I would say it really is about opportunity, and to open yourself up to the universe. And what that means
Yeah.
um, is putting yourself out there to meet the right person or people, and to network and to get to share ideas and knowledge. And I think that really fuels a growth mindset and a business mindset and a creative mindset. So I think it's important to get out there and not be so strict or narrow-minded in, your vision, but really be open to other people's ideas, and then learn to discern between like what works for you and what doesn't, but always be open to other people's ideas as well.
I love that. I love that. That's some really good advice. And to our listeners, I want you to go back for the last minute and a half and listen to what you just said. It doesn't matter if you're selling windows, toilet seats, cars, or food. What you just said is a life, not just a lifestyle, it's a life lessons on how to be successful in anything. So I absolutely love that about you. And I know our audience, when they dive into what you do and get to know a little bit more about you, they will be in love as much as we love having you here today. So with that, are you up for playing Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition?
I sure am.
So you are in trouble because somebody in my team is really, really mean. And she gave me 25 questions. So the way it works, Chef, is I ask you for a number. You give me the number. I read out the question. And then you can go quick, yes, no, and why. So this way we want to learn more about you. And if there's a mistake, it's most likely Chan's fault. So do not worry about it. Chan will take the hit for it. So with that, are you ready to play Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So Chef, give me a question or a number between 1 and 25.
24.
Ooh, 24 is a goodie. If a dish isn't Instagrammable, why should you even bother eating it? Yes or no, and why?
If it isn't Instagrammable, yes, you should still eat it. But from my personal perspective, it's because I can't see it, so it doesn't matter.
It's so messed
really,
up.
It's about the taste and the aroma.
That is so messed up. I love it though. Great answer. Give me a number between 1 and 25.
Let's go with 8.
Ooh, 8. Oh, that's oldie but goodie. Pineapple on a pizza. Yes or no, and why?
No, I am not a fan. I understand, but I'm not saying like you can't do it, because I'm always about to each their own. And I believe if that's your thing, then you do you. But for me personally, no, I think it doesn't belong.
Oh my God. That's the best. We just had somebody on who said, but I want to be like Wolfgang Puck. He made $600 million with pineapple and shrimp. So
see, that's a good answer too.
So give me next number between 1 and 25.
5.
5. Oh, should cheese be added to dessert more often? Yes or no, and why?
Should cheese be added to what?
Dessert more often.
Oh, yes, because I'm all about savory foods, and I think it's really fun when you can turn something unexpected into something fantastic. So it's like a mind teaser. So yeah. I love cheese, and I think most people wouldn't eat it in dessert, but like cheese souffle, come on, yum.
You had me at cheese. There's nothing I can say. Okay, give me a number between 1 and 25.
19.
19. Ooh. Should more dishes be named after famous people, like the Heartbreakers pie? Yes or no, and why?
I would say yes, if that's your thing. If you want to pay tribute to someone, I'm all about, I actually write the menu copy and name the dishes at my own restaurant. So I think if you want to name it after, a dish after Elvis Presley or John Lennon or Madonna or I don't know, whomever, or, Christian Fisher, do it.
Slippery slope. Okay, last question. Give me a number between 1 and 25.
Let's go 15.
15. Oh, should brunch be served 24/7? No questions asked. Yes or no, and why?
I would say yes, because I think any kind of food is good at any time of day, but I think maybe the word brunch should be reconsidered.
Oh my, this is a whole step. We need to have another conversation just about that, because I'm stuck with the name brunch. I don't like the name because
Yeah.
I don't like the way it's written. So for me, I'm with you 100%. There's an opportunity to do something better. And brunch is not it. And if you want to call it, hey, let's do brunch and build, because it's a cool thing. No, 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 no. Just in case you want to know, no, we're not doing that. But for me, there's a great opportunity for you to make food better. And for me, I absolutely love this conversation. I want to say thanks for being here today. You got to promise us we need to do 2.0. We want to learn more about John and all the things he does not do. Because, I'm just saying that. And then also we want to have another conversation because I want to learn more on how you actually run a restaurant with some of the things you have going on. So I'm absolutely fascinated with that. So if somebody would ask you, what is your single best word of wisdom, chef, what would that be?
Oh, well, I've already said trust your gut. So I would say my other really big piece of advice that I truly believe in is don't take yourself and your work and your life so seriously. And I say that because my tendency is I'm very type A, very controlling, very much a perfectionist. And I've been like this all my life. And in some ways, I still very much am. And I think a lot of it is I attribute that to how my parents raised me, my personality, but also I have to give that, some credit because I think my success comes from that as well. It's like I'm a very hard worker and I always strive to be the best, but that doesn't say that it doesn't come at the expense of occasional, mental health or even physical health or your stress or your relationships or just learning to live life and appreciate it for what it is and being in the moment. So I think oftentimes, I have this bad habit of getting carried away, of worried about the future, regretting something in the past. But I realize that life is very fleeting. You can lose people that you love in a moment when you don't expect it. So I think that you should really enjoy life, and what I say to that is, you learn to laugh at even the toughest things, and don't take things so seriously. Like all those terrible online reviews that you may get or feedback from guests that didn't enjoy something that you made. Yes, you can take that into consideration, but it's not the end all be all of your career or your world or your life. So don't take life so seriously.
I absolutely love that. And also I need to add on, don't read reviews because just don't read them. But I really appreciate you being here with us today. Thanks for the gift of your time. You gave us over an hour. Thanks for being patient with us. We had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but there's really three things for me as a takeaway was that you shared about your story about breaking through social norms. And that's for me absolutely fascinating. You talked about transforming beliefs. For me, I absolutely love that. And that you can change your narrative and what's possible in the world. And then that alone for me, I get goosebumps when I talk about this because I'm so humbled getting that conversation here with you today. I knew about you in season 3, but the more we dove into learning about you, I'm absolutely in love with you and the way you look at life, the way you look at your restaurant, the way you look at everything. And for me, more people need to get access to that. So therefore, to our audience, please not just walk over to check her out, run and get to know the same person I got to know over the last few weeks. And I'm absolutely humbled to have you. And thanks for being here.
Thanks, Christian.
Awesome. And to our listeners, if you haven't done so, make sure you like this episode. Make sure you share it with a friend because I know, you know 1, 2, maybe even 10 people which can benefit from this conversation. Until next time, remember to disrupt your career, to fire up your exchange of the way you look at the world, and make sure you stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host here with Chef Christine, and we out of here. So be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. Chef Christine, I absolutely love that. Thanks for being here today. We need to do a 2.0. And to our listeners, make sure you guys run out there and be disruptive, everybody. Thanks for being here today.